Everybody Saga, good morning. Samarajile. Come on.
Good morning, Garchen Rinpoche. Thank you very much, and we are settled to listen to your teaching. Thank you.
Come on, yeah.
Rinpoche says, actually, I'm more happy to see you.
We'll begin with the opening prayers in the Yellow Prayer Book on page 1, and we'll read each prayer once. All Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Mandala offering. An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms, if I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine, by offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial, the Supreme Mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Pratitya Swaha. Namo. To the Guru, the utter purity of all appearance and existence, I offer all appearance and existence arisen as the primordial ground. I supplicate you, may the 3 realms be completely liberated. Please grant blessings to empty samsara from its depths. Lord with 5 omniscient wisdoms, crown ornament, kind one with loving nature, precious protector of beings, heart of all Buddhas, inexpressible by words or thought, I supplicate you from the core of my mind. Bless me from within the state of Dharmata. Bless me to realize this mind, primordially pure and unborn as the unfathomable Dharmakaya. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
가지로 먹어서 근데 오면 이제 보랑네 대단 사진은 이제 뭐 아셈쪽 거기서 도대바 잡으려면 절로서 근데 서동동안 전화 주지 냐초배 보죠 질아서 어sem제도 나잖아 남바 주제는 저자도 너희들은 근데 남바나 다 가다 다 그다 침보를 레브라티로 청문을 되어서 그게 형따다 로직지가 강해지는 게상 다다로서 나지 가까서서 남도 지나지 당시 남도를 초발을 초초요래 예선데 대화서 등에 초안 잠을 요래 되는지 세지 기타 문이 따라가는 내용들이 남도 대체 로르지 남파도 뛴다면이 남도가 초와 남도 초와의 충분으로 요래 배나 로지 시바디 더 총창행서 대화도 등에 로지 남도가 죽어 로지 있나 남도 강샤를 되더니 샘락 바텀로 요래 쳐다랍저도 탐로 요래 그 가가만이 봐 이제란데 짐레서 말이 남도 죽어 탐바라 라고 고마마저랑서 그러니까 공부지 봐야돼 남도 초학하면 봐 가령 초학하면 봐 대동이야 체미나 그리고 고마롱도 저 봐이 주바롱도 저 봐이 som만 하려베 대화도 능력이다 또 초학하가 속침 보여 이제 이제 따진 거니 마봉도 또 손나더니 대화야 로를 남도 대야 세리 동네야 로를 남도 대세 열무보다 심한 지인들이 아니 소시 자기 대화들은 나도 좀 대민을 때 동네에 그래 대화를 때 동네를 때 대화 오지 대화때 매번 다 동네에 사서는데 아니 동네에 대화하고 가서 야 동네에 미송데 제일 미스 때리잖아 라고 생각 좀 봐. 다도 정말 다들 뭐 대화도 딱 말고 서 때려서 싸네 이렇게 생각도 너도 좀 때리잖아 딱 와서 대제만의 송리들이 코르치니 이제 다 잘이 이제 성난 남도 이해서 남도 되는 것보다 심한 집아들라 들이다 출바하지 정말 들이다 제직 남도 오동 딱 그러사생 그러나 남도 자와줘 좀 들이대 제직을 공부좀 들이 이제 나가 내려가 호텔 좋아마서 뒤에 남도 사람이 이제 젊어도 봐 나도 찌지 젊어도 봐 데르더니 데르더니다 내도 가르쳐서 남산에서 비말 미로래 쳐다랍지는 미로래 데리제를 로직 친구는 다다 산지 습진이가 데리 잡대 양도 삼도 손으로는 또 산지에다 습지 카카리 산지에라더니 용띠 포럼 총과 요래 고아라 등에 나도 돌아나 만나서 요래 대리야 세비제 있는 그 랑게 세비 박차진 좋다는 게 사축 생들 아울라 사지가 거다 이제 딱 봤더니 죽어다 놓은 거 데라서 봐 나와 샤른 거 요래 이 나디는 거라들이 차당 거라들이 로아를 줘 니몽을 줘라서 제주디 숨고 소만에 듬지게 직삼라서 이소 이는 사지심이 안 되고 요래 저선 촉sem네 집에 나가나 좀 유몽발에서 오더니 따로를 놓고 나와래 이제 저가 소속되다 누가를 소속 맞다도 가까이 심적이나 대다 세내로 가까이 돼 나한테 생각 나도 이제 와게 되니 님몽다 이시게 제발했어 대다 님몽다 제발 이시게 제발해서 되니 이시게 롱아 이시게 되는데 다와랑 속성을 지가면 되니 배는 님몽 이실절 등에 대왕절 동동 어쩌바리 배는 대사받는 로제시 받는 거나 오 기독교가 재미있는 거 방도 좀 봐야지 오 등에 대왕이야 제발미가 가야지 쳐달라면 로드 파트론도 요래 등에 돈도 내가 미도 요래 매 제부가 욕칭이 돼서 그래 매칭이 가로 드라마 대 맞췄지 매 차원은 진짜 드라마 살지 받쳤고 그래 배제서 너도 가르치면 너도 소감이 봐라 이실이 요함이 봐대 매진 좋아요 말이 너도 종종 어떤 양배 정성을 야요래 이십에다 정을 개변에 써야 하는 거 들이 성대지 매지 제일성 매 최고나들이 맥돌하고 봐요 그리고 탐제 책 저거 그래 대다 때 냠냠으로 뛰는 거고요 뭐봐 냠냠도 돼 와서 이제 하자 같이 보래
So today, Dharma friends, we continue from yesterday. So we stopped yesterday with the stage of non-elaboration. And so also it is said, just as it was previously, when one reaches the greater non-elaboration, which is the last stage of non-elaboration, then one has simultaneously attained the lesser or the first state of the next level, which is the level of one taste. So the next level, the third level, is one taste. So what is meant by one taste? So normally, we do not have one taste. Normally, we see a great diversity because we see everything as separately existing. So we see self and other on the outer level and on the inner level in our minds. There are many different thoughts. They all seem to be different kind of thoughts and different kind of feelings that arise. For example, we have 6 kinds of sensations, and we experience all sorts of sensations of pleasure and pain and so forth. So there seems to be a diversity. However, when one has understood the natural state of the mind and one is able to rest within that state, then one sees that all these thoughts arising are just temporary. They come and they go just like clouds in the sky. And so yesterday we mentioned that we begin with first recognizing the less intense, the kind of smaller thoughts and feelings. So first, when we come to the first of the 3 stages of one taste, which is the lesser one taste, so one recognizes that. So first one recognizes that all these feelings of pleasure and pain and so forth all have one taste ultimately within the natural state of the mind. It is also said that the thoughts and the Dharmakaya are of one taste. They are one and the same. So when one knows that, then no matter what kind of thought arises, one sees all mental arisings just like waves on water, just coming and then subsiding back into the ocean. But one doesn't see those waves as something separately existing. It's part of the water. It's not a separate thing. So just like that, one sees all the thoughts arising. And so Milarepa said that so when when thoughts arise and one recognizes that, then thoughts dissolve into the Dharmakaya, the natural state of the mind. So Milarepa said, isn't there someone here who can do that? In any case, one realizes that thoughts and the natural state of the mind are ultimately not separate. Milarepa also said that when one realizes that pleasure and pain, or happiness and suffering, are the same, then one has become like a perfect practitioner. So now we experience it all as very different feelings, various feelings of pleasure and pain and so forth. They're very strong. When one rests in the view, the natural state of the mind, when one realizes the empty nature of all appearance, one realizes also that basically they are the same in the sense that a happy thought is also just a thought. And any thought is temporary, it's momentary. And similarly, a negative suffering thought is also just a thought that is momentary. So when one recognizes that, one doesn't cling to the true existence. This is how it is, that thoughts really exist. One sees that they are just momentary appearances. And so in this way, actually, one overcomes suffering. So normally, the way we experience happiness and suffering is that they're basically two polar things. So it's because there is suffering that we know happiness normally. So, for example, what we call suffering is an absence of what we want, happiness. Or what appears as happiness is the absence of suffering. So that is how we perceive things. And so because we fixate on that and we try to own and cling to the happy and pleasurable experiences, then you grasp it and think that I always need that, I always want to have this happiness, I always want to have it. And so in this way we hold on, we become possessive. So also Milarepa had said that actually samsaric existence has no characteristics, has no true essential nature, has no basis. But if it had one, what it is the fixation to the true existence of our thoughts. That's what creates all the confusion that in turn then creates samsara. And so we have said yesterday in the one-pointedness, we first are able to hold the thoughts at bay. So we are controlling them. And so we have attained some stability in the view. And then secondly, in the stage of non-elaboration, we have said that we completely uproot all the thoughts, not just suppress them, but we uproot them. So in one-pointedness, one has attained a state of stability that one doesn't waver from one's resting ability. And so then, even if thoughts appear, one can see that these are just like outer appearances, but nothing that appears to one can like shake one or disturb one in any way, or move one in any way. No matter what it is, it's all kind of the same, like a wave appearing on water, whether it seems to be happy or a happy thought or a sad thought, and so on. So now coming to the stage of one taste, which also has 3 levels, and the ultimate level of one taste, the greater one taste, here one ultimately realizes that Buddhas and sentient beings are one and the same. So now we think that we are different. We think that Buddhas have these perfect qualities, and in samsara there is so much suffering. But what one realizes here is that the basis of mind is one and the same. And one realizes the workings of one's habitual imprints, the karmic imprints in the mind. So one recognizes that whatever one whatever imprint there is in the mind will be projected. For example, if the imprint is one of bodhicitta, then that will be projected as the Pure Lands, as pure Buddha forms of Dharmakayas and Sambhogakayas and so forth. And then on the other hand, if the imprint is self-grasping, attachment and anger and so on, that will naturally project as the 6 realms of samsara, these are the natural manifestation of the 6 afflictive emotions. Thigten Sumgön had said that cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. So when the cause is bodhicitta, pure appearances will manifest. And when the cause is afflictive emotions or thoughts, then the appearance is the manifestation of the 6 realms of samsara. So now, to us, it appears that we are all separate, all the beings in the 6 realms. So in this world, we see a distinction between, for example, humans and animals. We think that we are separate, different beings. But actually, ultimately, also our mind is one and the same. Just on the outer level, there appears to be a separation. And that appearance is also just an inner thought, a perception that doesn't inherently exist. So then next we speak about the difference between the afflictive emotions and primordial wisdom. So even though there seems to be a difference within the ultimate space of mind, actually they are one and the same ultimately. Or that is what is meant with saying that the afflictive emotions transform into wisdom, into primordial wisdom. That is, if one is able to sustain the natural state of the mind with stability, then one transforms the afflictions into wisdom and suffering into happiness. So in the one taste, one realizes that, as Milarepa had said, when you realize that happiness and suffering or pleasure and pain is the same, then you have perfected meditation. That is really the essence of one taste. And that's the most important point. So now we think that we experience happiness, we experience suffering and so forth, but actually when you really see the thought as it is, they really are the same in terms of they are just a thought. They come and they go and lack inherent existence, just like a wave on water. So they go away in the same way. The happy thought goes away, and then the sad thought also goes away. All happiness and suffering goes away, comes and goes. In the Dzogchen teachings, it is said that this is the nature of things. For example, fire can never be cold, can never have a coldness to it. So similarly, that is the nature of things. Everything has that same nature, and it cannot be any other way. So for this reason, no matter what thought arises, whatever feeling or afflictive emotion arises, it doesn't move one in any way, disturb one in any way. So the mind just stays with stability. Also yesterday we mentioned this quotation where we said one should nurture the spark of wisdom through mindfulness over and over again. So we have said that awareness is like fire. It begins just with a spark, but when the fire becomes really powerful, then effortlessly it can burn away anything. So all of this is really from speaking from an experiential perspective. And also Milarepa said that meditation must be connected to an actual experience. So that's most important.
Then the check to the logic someday that 맹지 따가 말이마도 사칭 가가만이 지 책도 연구요리 사칭 가가마자들 마고 연구하는 것도 강의들이 강성들이 레네 담보 쪼롱 초당자 저 제적 고급 강의리 이 제주 백강이 망보요래지 레서 쪼롱 초당자 금 밥천하지 이 남동 문지 참마도 진짜 대면 대대로 강에 망고에 바드 초 강가 다시 봐 그들이 제적이 그래래 뭐 가면들이 대해서 설마 독도 샤르토 리상지 받더니 이제 독도로 흐르 창을 바드 초 강가 다시 마서 타마 접지 마음에 받아서 다들 어떻게 소화돼 다 되리 예를 들어 어떤 로제들은 니는 소거리 도마 로제 말이 더 로제 도마지 그는 거기에 취사 로제라 도마리 도마가리들이 아 다과 상계에서 상계의 요티 쌈지 맞아봐 요즘만 봐 양사제 같은 신갑라서 관세 받더니 사제 가서 요티 양지니 대양 세미송아리지 마고하는 동화를 놓더니 이 성성당 다 동화를 놀라서 저 타지 셈에서 말이지 셈 것들이 이제들이 게대기 강의들이 이와서 삼바테 니지 소리 이와서 다디도 소리 먹이와서 다디가 이제 되는 정도 되는 먹이와 차들이 나연 좀 방아지 그들이 인fin을 놓는 욕선이 인fin 셈을 통해서 짜리기를 때 다다 내외저당 동행이 저도 냉다고 요리양 내외적 그소지는 내외저당 내발저는 동직 내외적 봐서 요 말이지 강의도 군다고 달라 그 산속설이 사바도 힘제리지 동행이 저 좋아를 두고 동행이 저도 잘쳤지 가리고 난지도 나지 더 잘서나 나지 잘도 요리 나지 요리 다왜 이지 요리 데르티들이 차당을 해서 코비지다 이제 말하는 순간에 코비지 이제 다 남도지만 다 통화들이 거기서 그러더니 뭐 본데 막 나연도만 들리지는 거고 소리 빼대다는 거들이 다 로직을 떠마지 생내로 찍을 때도 산지 시키니가 송 찹잡지고 유번 탁후 가래지 들이 때도 생내로 또나 다 떠마로 찍지 다 생내로 땅가리 양양도 삼당네 남도 이제가 답다 송나 야 시바를 때시게 들이 하고서는 대일무들이 리타 쳤다 봐는데 별 잠벌 그 접지 삼지 잡소는 로요에 양 철속에 잡소서 사원으로 나고 띠바다 잡아지는 양과자는 양양 잡초는 거 되고 하자는 걸 이따 도마로 되는 오다 샘들 나와 샘도 타지 이 심리 동벌 차지들 다지님에 봐 이들 타지에서 들이 싸움었다 로이 띠바가 잡서 대다가 싸움었다네 이들이 고아지 사용거리 오 도마로 되 레디나 로직 도마리들 엉니레지 코레니가 저다 샘리지 델리 땡디 이시 딱딱지 고토고요래 데고로다 로직 고상에 오 로직을 또 많이 하고서는 이 빼줬고요 저도 잠벌 가바게 찹대 가바지는 잠벌 랭나 로도 지금 맞도 데이터 상모도 데고 하고래 이 생각로니 발견 먹었지 참을요래 데고 하셔나들이 다 세분내로 따져대 하여튼 가르치고 다른 독서를 가르치고 좀 그러지 하고 덕대를 좀 제토고요래 때문에들이 공자야 지야 기치버서 동해지 영어 따시네 공부를 되니 내 마음들이 여자들이 다 체지사와 속치고 차노래 다들 책이적 약속만 그래서 가가면 책들이 좀 도마로 로직도 마소더니 소요래 이 책이 하도 좀 뭐래 따하마고는 로직도 도마 차로요래시 가르쳐는 고대니 차로요래시 따하고는 도마로 찍으래시 고대에서 셈리지 고대에서 나를 고 나를 파다지 요 말이 별로 레와들 가르 싹동지 오 쌀을한지 라면 쌀을 똥들은 남판하지 마도 요 말이 오 대다를 랑셈 냠용탄 전에 광자분은 리페 대사 폐기요래 아래 득보치나 나가 때렸더니 좀들이 지라고 치려고 그래 이만에 좀들 하장시에 그요래 배대다래 돈이 돈을 좀 제요 말이죠. 대사의 그 자양 가서 우리 돈이 돈을 좀 제이도 당진이 기수가 숨을 왜 대야고 그래.
So we have those three different names of one-pointedness, non-elaboration, and one taste. So they just have different names, but actually they are the same in the sense of a progression of one's mental stability. So that's actually explained very clearly in the Ganges Mahamudra from an experiential perspective. And so in that text it says that in the beginning, so as a beginning practitioner, meditation is still a little bit difficult. It's difficult for one to stay single-pointedly in meditation. So it says in the text that in the beginning the mind is like a waterfall, fiercely gushing down. In the beginning we try to meditate, but it's hard to even recognize all of our thoughts and we can't stay still. And then secondly, next it says, then in the middle, after a while, the mind becomes like the river Ganges, flowing gently. So then the mind begins to calm down a bit. So then that is where we move from first one-pointedness, we then move to non-elaboration. So in that second stage, we come to non-elaboration. And so here, in the state of non-elaboration, one no longer analyzes the arising thoughts or clings to a dualistic existence, and so therefore one is able to liberate, let go of all the thoughts that arise. So that is called liberation upon arising. The mind becomes relaxed at this stage. And then the third stage in that text, it says, in the end, the mind becomes like all the rivers, the confluence of all the rivers in the ocean. So then in the end one becomes like the still ocean, which is just like the meeting of a mother and her child. And so here we achieve one taste when the mind becomes still. And so in one taste, if you have the text in there, it mentions that. So in a one taste, one experiences the manifold as one taste, and one taste as the manifold. So the manifold having one taste means that there appears to be a great multiplicity of appearances in samsara and nirvana, but they all have one taste. So a multiplicity has one taste. Multiplicity means that there is a great variety of appearances. For example, there are the endless qualities of a Buddha that we cannot even put into words, and then endless pure lands and enlightened activities. But they are all of one taste because they all arise from the mind, the same mind. And similarly, also in samsara, the 6 realms of samsara or the 3 lower realms, all the suffering of samsara also arises from the mind. So in that sense, they are all of one taste. So therefore, even though there is an experience of happiness and suffering, it all has one taste. But temporarily, it is due to virtuous actions that we experience happiness. And so with virtue is meant a mind of love and compassion. And non-virtue is a mind of self-clinging. When there is a mind of self-clinging or self-grasping on the basis, then everything becomes non-virtuous. It is said the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So there's this verse in the 37 practices. So the suffering comes from wishing for one's own happiness, and the Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. And so basically we just give them different names. We call that's virtue, that's non-virtue. But it's really just that. It is bodhicitta, it is love, that leads to all happiness and nothing else. That's the cause of happiness. You always make this prayer, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So it really is the relative bodhicitta, or love and compassion. And the cause of suffering is self-grasping. And so when one separates from self-grasping, one will separate naturally from the dualistic perception of self and other. Because first, when there is self-grasping, there is a perception of a me, a self. And if there is a perception of a self, one also perceives other. And when one perceives other, then dualistic grasping arises. And when one sees things in a dualistic way, one develops thoughts of attachment and anger and so forth, and then accumulates karma. And so again, Milarepa had said that the basis of samsara has no characteristics. If anything is at the basis, what is at the ground of samsara is a thought. It arises out of a thought of me and I, and a thought thinking that appearances possess a concrete existence. So then again, so a multiplicity appears as one taste. All multiplicity has one taste. So although there are many sentient beings, many Buddhas, they all have the same nature of the mind. And then when one realizes the nature of that mind, then one taste appears as multiplicity. Then also one sees it goes the other way around. So if one recognizes the nature of the mind, then the multiplicity, for instance, of the thoughts in the mind, as many as there are dust particles in the sun ray, all arise from the same mind. So when one recognizes that, it is just like all the thoughts that arise dissolve back into the mind, just like when pouring salt into water, it dissolves instantly. Or it is like all the water in the world, or it is like clouds in the sky. It all has the same nature. So, for example, with water and clouds, it actually always goes in circles like that. It appears in different ways, but then in the end, it always is the same. So, for example, you have the rain falling down from the clouds into the ocean, and then the water evaporates from the ocean, and then it goes up as some kind of like mist and back into the sky, and again becomes a cloud. And then again the rain comes down and so forth. So this is how everything kind of goes in circle, and even though it appears in so many different ways, it's all the same thing, has one taste. So what one realizes here is that appearances, the way things appear is one's own mind, and the mind itself is empty of self-nature, meaning that there is no self and no other existing separately. And so the understanding of one taste actually is an understanding that needs to arise in your day-to-day activities. So normally, in our day-to-day activities, when we reflect on that, you can see a multiplicity, but when you really observe, you can see that it is really true that a multiplicity has one taste. It all comes from your own mind. So you can understand that very clearly in your day-to-day life too. And so if you understand that, then the way you will understand it is, for example, there's one example that I have come up with, and that is, in this world, everyone has a phone, a hand phone. And every phone is powered by the same electricity. And even though there are so many different phones, there's not many different electricities, there's only one. So actually, if you think of it in this way, you can understand it very easily. You can understand the mind very easily. As a matter of fact, the mind and like electrical energy have actually the same essence. So therefore, since through this realization, when you realize the nature of the mind, you transcend all suffering. There is really nothing that's more important. it's so important to realize the nature of the mind. And if you see how important it is, you will be able to make an effort and be diligent. If not, then if you don't consider it as so important, then you might have some interest in meditation, but then usually we just meditate when we suffer. And when we suffer, then we go and we meditate and practice shamatha. And for the most part of our lives, all the time really, we really care about the activities of this life only. And so it is good to have an ongoing state of practice. And so remember on these 2 lines, these 2 statements. So a multiplicity has one taste, and one taste appears as multiplicity. So that's very important to understand. When you understand that one taste appears as multiplicity, then you also understand that a multiplicity has one taste. And then you understand, as it is said, that everything that appears in samsara and nirvana actually is your own mind, is your own intrinsic awareness, and nothing other than you, nothing else. And that mind itself, the nature of that mind, is clear and empty. So there is a vibrant, conscious quality to it, but also it is empty, just like space, like the sky. And so that is something that needs to be understood on the basis of an experience. One needs to really kind of connect this understanding to an actual experience through meditation practice. Then it will really be of benefit. And so for me, this has been very beneficial, and I'm actually a very sinful person. But through all these things I have experienced, my trust in karma actually has grown stronger and stronger. And if I'm afraid of something, then it is karma. I'm careful about karma. Because that's an important point too, because some people say that when one realizes emptiness, then there is no more karma. But that is actually not true. Jigden Sumgön had also said that actually when one realizes emptiness, then karma or cause and effect appears as the kind of the reflection or the kind of the radiance of emptiness, of this realization.
그래서 나지 담아게 샬롱나 정말 내 참아잖아. 무슨 말 로직라 진능 탐지 세미 사자 전부 로직도 또장 내 용신 전부 미시게 치유봐 로직 청어지 용진 미시게 치유봐 용진이잖아. 하고요 지슬이 레도 차다다데 남쪽에 샤송데 오타테시 다들 공대 속달레데 오타테 가송데 용진이 시즌 70반데 다다다 독지게실 센터를 부시지데 이 당 생부터마들이 샘들 마인드만 니들들이 박차대사 내요 그래 서로 초하죠 내요 그래 내가 어찌래 시다디 다 샤르송 다 도송 sembol로 데르버들이 똑똑 로지 요래 대 생당 말이 생글 말이 생년들이 람장 리과는 생 하도 싸워들 다른 거죠 요래 하다 공 싸워요 볼까니더니 별로 유머바 상은 샤토들 람장 땡땡 미터바디 소알부 뭐 중중대 용딩이 시즌 지이되는 하정들이 소가 중통도 요래 다다 끄덕하고 뭐나는 네 김밥 메이퍼감이 디 벨라티네들이 디들 박차대요 요래 박차들 소화제 내와라고 해서 제 남이 하고 살때 내와가 소화 책대 파트롤만 들을 십지로 돼서 하여튼 소화 차와리 벨라티들이 박차도 거는 이제 벨라티들이 내와를 찾고 할때 라과 차당이야 차라들이 레도야 다 놀러 레도요래 레도디 마토너들이 레도 차와요들이 로직 충분히스 로직 경우 도마 로직도 용신 zembe 미시제 마타니 나와 설마를 세미 난데 말이 봐 마센 예미 람람 모두 잡아 로직 있는 곳은 나와 설마를 세미 난데 말이지는 다다다 이 강관이나 내는 강관이나 되는 다 남이들이 야오나 강관 나 강관은 요성 초하게 요래 남이들 야가 강관 요미까지 하면 맥좀 강관 매가나이 차리요래 맥대는 강관은 더욱성 대로 초하게 요래 오 돈은 좀 매가 제들이 다다다 나와 설류들 나 강관은 요 강관 사랑이래서 가는 거 지초와 초를 세면과 제들이 나와 셀 세미 나들이 들이 다이진 저바싸네 다 소문이 맥주 마셔 강화 매반하기 들때 뒤로 따라만 저거 라고 쳐보고 나는 강화나 대처는 강화나 라고 로버도 저바가 따대로 샤문이 이 토제고 쳐보고 그래 대가는 아무튼 생분도 봐게 강화도 봐 대로 샤문이 진짜 봐 요배라 딱게 당에 야 강화 쳐보는 데 라산라고 쳐보던 거 가래시는 강체지 촉촉 제 제들이 들이다 대서기 용디들 토롱을 용디를 토마도 들 딱지 땅 예름라서 보고 보다 들이 딱지 땅 거래지
So then here in our text, the Dharmakirti Shalom, or the oral instructions by Dharmakirti, in the text then for the lesser one taste, it says, at the stage of lesser one taste, one has realized that thoughts and perceptions have one taste within mind itself, that is Mahamudra. However, one still retains a slight fixation on this experience or some attachment to a conviction of this recognition. So this term here, the fixation on a slight fixation, a grasping on this experience. So there are still some subtle thoughts of basically hope and fear in the mind. There is some grasping in the mind. For example, grasping meaning that you think. So, for example, you think a thought has arisen. You know now a thought has arisen, and then I meditated, and then the thought disappeared. So you have these concepts arising in your mind. And so, no, there's a kind of a heedfulness and an introspection. You're looking at what arises, and that is subtly conceptual. This introspective mind. So also in Dzogchen speaks about an introspective mind or an awareness that is alert. So then you know. Now I'm grasping, now a thought has arisen, and a habitual tendency has arisen, or a feeling of bliss has arisen, or a thought of this is one taste. So there's these subtle thoughts arising in the mind. So that you know you're thinking something has arisen, and now it's gone, now it's liberated. So there is this slight analytical mind still that's there at this point, a slight fixation, a slight grasping, and so then we call this mind awareness or rigpa, intrinsic awareness that we become increasingly aware of, and rigpa means the mind that is extremely clear, the utterly clear mind. So when your meditation is very clear, when the mind is very sharp, then the moment the thought arises, it goes away. The moment the thought is seen by this sharp awareness, it is already liberated. So the way thoughts arise is like they arise and already they're gone in an instant, just like that. But then there is still a very slight grasping, a thought in the mind of knowing what's happening. Also, that is explained in the Samantabhadra prayer. So first, there is a state of unmindfulness. When there's a state of unmindfulness, then we reinforce our negative habitual or karmic patterns, the imprints in the mind. And then due to these imprints, various feelings of bliss, for example, and so forth arise. So you think that this is a very nice experience, and then you just feel this experience of great bliss. And also if it's an unpleasant experience, then there is a negative reaction to that. But it's very subtle here at this stage. It's a very subtle reaction to mental arisings here in this stage. And so in the Samantabhadra prayer, it says, slowly imprints grow stronger and thicker. So normally, in an ordinary sense now, we have the coarse afflictions of attachment and anger. And their subtle counterparts are hope and fear. So in brief, here one has not entirely liberated the subtle forms of hope and fear. So there are subtle forms of hope and fear at the stage of the lesser one taste. And then the medium one taste, it says at the stage of medium one taste, one experiences the manifold as one taste, and having purified the stains of fixating on one's conviction, one attains a vivid realization of appearances and mind as inseparable. One realizes that there are no separate appearances outside, nor a mind inside. So one realizes that there is no separate appearance outside or a mind that is inside. So for example, when you're inside of a building, normally you have this perception of I am inside a building. There's this natural feeling that you're inside, not outside. When you're meditating and not grasping at that, sometimes when you're in the building meditating and you close your eyes meditating, sometimes there's no more sensation. You don't feel that there's a house around you any longer. You forget, it's almost like there is no house. And then you open your eyes again and then the house is back. So this is often what happens when there is no grasping in the mind. But when there is grasping in the mind, then you perceive that you are inside something. So you perceive there is this house and I'm inside this house, and then there's an outside to this house and so on. So that is the when one sees things in an ordinary way, ultimately, actually there is no separation between inside and outside. And so, then it says, at the stage of greater non-taste, one realizes the manifold as one taste, and the realization of one taste manifests as the manifold. Everything subsides into a natural state of equanimity. So when all grasping thoughts have become purified, then there is no more perception of separation. There is a house and there's me and so on. So you can kind of try that out. You just visualize the form of a large deity. Now some people, when they visualize the form of a large deity that goes way beyond them, then often they feel that it's difficult for them to visualize because eventually it reaches the roof and then it kind of bumps into the roof. And it can't fit basically into the room because there seems to be an obstruction. So when there is no grasping, there is also no inner and outer, no obstruction. So you can visualize anything really. So you can try that out without really analyzing it in terms of is it this or is it not. You just in an instant just visualize a very large deity or anything. And see how there is no obstruction around you. And so this is how we liberate ourselves from these thoughts of grasping at the outer and the inner. And so if not yet liberated, then again we need to persist in the practice of maybe not analyzing, but thinking deeper about the generation stage practice of the deity.
문제 그 식 맞췄나 들이 로저가 막 산에 되니까 좀 뒤에 사람을 저기 맞당 또 샘지 바래 딱 깨다만 데르티들이 이 빠트 또 삼치게 등에 데르티들 또 샘담 많이들이 내가 들이 저희들이다 또 먹을 레사 손에서 로지 또 먹대로 가리리 내로 대통사를 내로 대통도 세면 내로도 마도바 로바토바 소다도바 내로 마도니들이 좀제들이 가시 좀제를 대통사거리 다른 거 줄을 좀제 라서고 돈이지만 따뜻해서 봐 라서 따와라 띠띠 레디 사전에 그 레디 가리가 싸움 용치 리들이 싸움을 변시당 sem을 끼마타듯이 람상 파사마탐지 바데오르시 바데 컨들이 산이 시송나 리들 세드 바도로는 바디들 박차디라서 그때도 로그 듣바라다 돌라서 또 바치다지 내가 때선지 가리 시당을 하도 차도를 하도 뒤떡을 메토스니들이 뭐토만아서 보게 메토스니 인간 메토스이 그래 맞다 찍바 찍자로 대사노는 들이 주변에 대해서 시상지를 때리더니 다 생각이 싸우마 맞으나 성우도 생각하는 덕 수작지요 말이지 성우도 생각해도 생싸우마 맞으나 루트가 자자자 로도 갈레스는 니용도 들이 대답을 싸우면 들이 공자도 주르치 주르치도 준비를 싸우면 준비를 뛰는 파워를 때문에 제가 차도 코를 야들을 수비시 어서카야 보시오 스피드업제 대화때 뒤동에도 차들은 나가들이 세상다 차도 코너티 라서가 생부터 내니나 대들이 또 발라서가 내려봤다 네 주민 무부랑 속시다 차도라서 통지마 세예 똑같이 나는 똑라서가 시기 가서 내가 또 대노는 준비를 이치다 돈이 양 내디제도 봐 대사와들이 디들이들이 돈이 좀 돼서 당도 대 냠들은 오 돈만이 좀 돼가요 말이지 대답은 말이 들이 이치도 가르치게 거리는 족지 손은디 다 로책다 고민이 받으니 갈고리들은 이제 담지 요지 인치 손이 신체 라서봐 그래서 뭐 하나는 손에 노요 동화 설마 방도 자신 봤을만 돼도 누가 요들은 농조를 될 신신 바가래도 다시 나도 딱볼 때 거기도 야 로직도 어떤 요라 감정 뒤쳐 요라 조민아 돼 가려면 감정 뒤쳐 뒤차고 그래 졸라부터니 다또 그래 뭐가 고마 조바들이 예만하리 밖에 기독인가 체면에 조바롱도 줘봐 예송 대독인가 체면에 조바롱도 줘봐 예송 대송은 조바롱도 줘되는 다섯 답변다 어떻게 변해 제로라고 그리고 제대로 통을 대서 대답을 살못도 냠냠탁 때문에 스드빌라 딱 제당 난 돈이 있어서 못하나 돈이 집어도 가래리 낭나 또 니뭐 강살 타긴 세면서 또바지 차서도 쯤짱마 차서도 적신이 있으면 실그랑 촉마서 와서 주민은 뒤 하다 피보요래 뒤에도 실그랑 촉마서 와는 가리 랑 기시 싸워들 용어바 갈로 때마다도 곰자는 지들이 남상 곰 속침을 자체가 매번도 그래 좋아요 말이 다다 맞으는 초과 잡잖아요 야 이 밑에 다 통로 좋아요 말이 material 공부 다지는 가까이요 말 뒤에다도 자도 실으로 속마서 와서 저 나한테만 더 줘요 말이 실으로 속마서 나는 진실을 유모가 털라고 대람상 파 상과 세터하면 뒤쪽으로 되는 이 쇼답 집어서 오지 뭐 들리는 거 봐. 우리 뭐다 소화랑서 소화만 듣지 다들이 몇째 통나 저는 막아왔다고 무섭지 내가 사왔다니 뒤는 놓았다는 뒤는 될 시간 뭐도 뒤도 시간도 하자냐는 게 싸워도 어떻게 그 시간 돌아와리 그는 도차 대화할 때 돌아가고 요성을 배 대답이 잘롱이냐면 뒤는 마도는 도차 돌아가고 요서 세상 돌라고 세상은 들이 폐기월에 그래서 올라가더니 똑같이 보고 말 세상 고성 내가 보던 거리 사족이 또 잘하시는 다 삭치는 독신이 싸면 그 말이 세권 일로 가리가 피나 가리냐면 이제 버려야지.
So a multiplicity appears as one taste, and one taste appears as multiplicity. And through understanding that, actually one's trust in karma increases even more. And now one becomes free from was in the previous stage, anyways, like grasping at one's experience that one has gained. And so now when many people practice meditation, and they all do recognize their afflictive emotions, but often even though we recognize our emotions, we still cannot let go of them. And so here it is important to understand that one taste appears as multiplicity. Or as we said before, in terms of karma, cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. So, for example, humans and animals. Think about the difference between humans and animals. So it seems, of course, that there is a difference in terms of their appearance. But the mind actually is one and the same. It is just that an animal is born in such a shape of an animal due to the karma of ignorance. And ignorance actually is also related to having doubts in the mind. For example, we have a lot of doubts when it comes to the nature of the mind, or we misunderstand things, we have a wrong understanding, or we do not understand anything, or we have a partial understanding, and so forth. Or some people have doubts, they doubt karma, and they doubt the nature of the mind, or they doubt emptiness, and so forth. Or they doubt the view, which is the nature of the mind. And so then they accumulate karma, and then that leads to such fixation. And so now here, when we engage in practice, so how do we practice? So when anger arises, for example, so first anger arises, and then there is this imprint. So this grasping basically means that there is this impression that is made with each thought that arises. So an impression is made in the mind, and then that stays in the mind. So after we have died, we have left behind the body, the impressions, these imprints are still in the mind. And so then the appearances of the bardo then become to manifest. And that is because of this impression, this imprint that we have left in the mind by anything that we did, and all the thoughts we have cultivated. And so as a result of that, for example, if the imprint was one of anger and hatred, and then also mixed with ignorance, then one is born as a more frightening animal, like a poisonous snake or a scorpion, and so on. And they already appear, their shape, their appearance is really quite unpleasant. And they are also quite dangerous. They are also poisonous. So really, they are really a manifestation, a natural manifestation of the inner thought of anger or hatred. And ultimately, however, our mind is the same. Or when you think of little ants, for example, little ants also have a certain kind of karma of always kind of staying busy and always working really hard, actually just like people, running around like people. And so when we think about that, when we observe the animals like that, then maybe some fear of karma arises. And you recognize that if I don't purify my mind, then those seeds, these impressions, they will remain within the mind. So I must, by all means, purify my mind. Because if I do not, then with 100% certainty, I will be looking just like that, like this. I will take birth as such an animal. So this is really how we actually put this understanding into what again experience. It is, for example, by observing the animals, and then when you gain this experience by seeing the animals, for instance, then you will begin to feel inspired by meditation, and you will want to make an effort to practice and to purify your mind of all these negative emotions. So it really comes from a fear of karma, of karmic ripening. And so so you know that if the anger remains within the mind, then such an appearance of an animal like a snake or a scorpion will ripen. So anger and jealousy and so forth ripen in these negative forms. We can actually see them. They're real manifestations of negative emotions. So their outer appearance is quite dreadful, and also they are quite dangerous. They can poison us and so on. So in this, through understanding this and reflecting about karma in this way, develop some kind of certainty in karma. And as we said before, then everything is not just empty, because karma really is the natural, the radiance of emptiness. So they are also not separate. Because some people claim that, when you realize emptiness, everything is empty, so therefore there is no karma. But that's really not the case at all. That's not true at all. Also, there is a teaching in the Dzogchen teachings on that, which is also related to the fixation and how this plays an imprint into the mind. For example, it is explained in the Samantabhadra prayer, which is related to the Dzogchen teachings, that explains the experience of practicing one taste. So in that prayer it says, when you encounter a sense pleasure, so for example when lust arises, do not abandon it, but also do not accept it, do not take it on. So what that means is that you can enjoy a sense pleasure, but what you should look at is, am I beginning to cling and being attached? So how can you recognize that? It is when you start thinking, I want this again, I always want this. That's when you become attached. And so when you realize one taste, then a sense of contentment arises. Basically, if the object is present, then it is fine. And if it is not present, then it is also fine. Basically, you are content with whatever comes your way or not. So this is how one taste is really practiced in the day-to-day activities. This is how it should become. And so this is how we bring the experience gained in meditation into our day-to-day activities. Milarepa also said that this is what we need to do. We need to bring our experience into our day-to-day activities. And he said that when you realize that there is no difference between happiness and sadness or pleasure and pain, then you have perfected the conduct, or like one's daily conduct. So that is the result of having mastered one taste. So reflect upon that. So sometimes think about karma in this way, previously mentioned way, or sometimes also reflect on the empty nature. And so how do you reflect on the empty nature? So for example, when thoughts and afflictive emotions arise, empty here means that you know that they are in essence empty and they can go away, they will go away. And when they go away, then the mind remains in its pure natural state. Also in the Dzogchen teachings, and Jimmy Lingpa also said that do not lose the stability of your own awareness. This instruction is extremely beneficial actually. So the stability of your own awareness is to sustain a clear mind, clear mindfulness, that when sustained, will recognize whatever arises, the moment it arises. So when an afflictive emotion arises, you instantly recognize it and you meditate. And then even a very powerful emotion will go away if you do not grasp at it, if you do not hold on to it. For example, even if you got really angry with a person and you had an argument, if you meditate within that state and it completely goes away, then even though you had a fight, there's no feeling left behind. So when you meet the person again, there is no negative feeling that arises within you. You don't cling to a self and other and the other person and so forth and what the other person did. You do know what the other person did, but there is no feeling of anger at all left behind. So that is when an emotion arises, but it arises within mindfulness, and in this way becomes purified instantly, and then you only stay within that state of clarity. And you should make an effort in that, so that when the afflictive emotion can arise, but then you have to completely let go of it, so that not even a feeling of it later on is left behind, no feeling of resentment and so on. And that is actually a quality of anger, for example, because anger has a quality of clarity. When the anger arises, because of its clear quality, actually it is quite easy to liberate anger. It is that it's quite easy to liberate anger. It's much more difficult to liberate or let go of desire or attachment, because desire is also related to bliss, a blissful experience, so it's more difficult to liberate. Unless one practices the channels, winds and drops and so on. Otherwise, it's quite difficult. But it is said that it's easier to liberate anger. And it's also very beneficial. In the Dzogchen teachings, for this reason, actually, it even says that you should bring up your anger, because you need it in order to liberate it. And so, again, in terms of your own practice, even though we keep calling it different names, Mahamudra and Dzogchen and so on, don't think of it as something different. Don't think that I'm practicing Mahamudra or Dzogchen and so on. Basically, which instruction belongs to what. Basically, you should practice whatever helps you the most to realize the nature of mind.
맵돌 마구 봐지 맵돌 마구 베카미스니 진시디 용나 저마타버지나 오지 dimba 마리 선로테 요마 dimba 메바 시레 참치 주제랑 지 마타바 띠나 파르 로도는 저 대양대양 띠나 파츠나 토도 땅디 요 마사 미 마사 벨라다 공리 마친 예미디런로 데 또 맥은 통 되네요. 데 마리선 데 마사 마리아 마사네 라고 공거리 파 찹되었나 이 차가 데 저한테 와서 데바 마리아 sabjitiya 다이지 라버티 어떤 동지로 차한 거리 문에서 좀 왔다왔잖아 다시는 샵되나 좀 밤에 봐야지 낭동지 제대로 slatab지 이번 야통도 좀마다 차대요 야통도 은혜 요삼지요 말 매사 좀만 내가 통고요 제대로 대지성 욕도 오면 좀마다 되는 돈들이 세고 도도 지만 거라 좀마다 dim 바쪽에 여하튼 저 보면 청의 있어
Then we come to the stage of non-meditation. So first, at the stage of lesser non-meditation, deliberate mindfulness and meditation are no longer necessary, and appearances arise as meditation. However, merely subtle and illusory fixations are still present. So now in the state of non-meditation, eventually meditation becomes effortless. So when one is always mindful, one begins to see everything as illusory by nature. So one doesn't think that anything is true, anything is real, but also not that things are not real, things are unreal. There's simply no thought. So if you think that nothing is real, so everyone knows that things do not really inherently exist. So we can know that, but we don't grasp it, we don't analyze that. So we know that things are impermanent because they are compounded, but we cannot say that they exist, nor can we say that they do not exist. So in terms of the mind, without thinking that it exists nor that it doesn't exist, look directly without a thought at your mind. And as I mentioned before, then eventually, through not grasping at existence or non-existence, appearances and mind will become one, will merge. Which means that while you still see things, there is no thought of these things are real or a thought of these things are unreal, not real. There is no thought whatsoever, but the experience is like your mind is like all pervasive, pervades them all. There's just no, things are there, but they're all pervaded by your mind. So therefore, the appearances themselves are like illusions. So don't think that they are true, nor that they are untrue. And especially, one shouldn't grasp at the emptiness at emptiness at all. And so when things appear as illusory, then just remain within that without grasping or thinking about it. So that we call appearance or emptiness, the empty nature of appearances, which is also the nature of the deities. The deities appear, but just like a rainbow in the sky, like an illusion. So you can't say that a rainbow is a real thing, because it's not a substantial thing. But then you also can't say that there is no rainbow, because you can see it clearly. So this union of appearance and emptiness is what we call the union of the two truths. And wherein appearances appear, but like illusions. So in brief, the point is that you don't analyze or grasp at anything whatsoever to be either true or not true, or to possess any concrete existence, but everything is illusory.
Jumatavu Zamba Tetayang Rati Yimti Tamji Gomi Koyok the Sojing Jinang the Nachi Chamo Ransar the Chava Gomi Bosong the Javatam Zabati Yimti Koyok Sibadi the Nita Malam the Nintoka Sar Nintoka Darsang Yimti Koyok Takayori. Ni tawa sar sa ma thora de ni chi koyok ta cha ke yo ma di yenang me ba ta ni dong ni chi koyok de chawa de pa ma ni ko li de ji shi pa yo na ni song na pa yo gong de ni ko de che ni se ma sa de ni nga ni se do ma sam ba de ni nya ni ji de ni che se yong de ni lam se de ni ha cha sa sa cha ang le de the lam didn't say something to me. They Dawa sang for you go to you. You told us a hat and cabo your you tong what they took you on my they took us some yes already. And you told us that the seven part. You say ma to the gong tree. The gong tree, but told us the yam tree. The damn tree longer. Tiny pardonia. Gong tree, you said you gong to need to say to me. Sugar sang jeso. You related long tree, not in the palm, but you damn tree, longer sang jeso. You say matter down, somebody needing the settlement. There is chocolate in Jokayori. They don't Lamgason, had a culture Lamgason, the Jatan near the end, the said, so malam the same malam the Malam Nipara Che Mina Goma long to buy in so. Malam the 当错了的哩，你看个南华的亲戚，没那么牛啊，基本没办法，也好了，就错啊，考虑你看个错啊，他就冲着着，我把他前面的冲着着，我考虑上了再送，刚都得错着我唱了，你没那么得到的去，到底你用你有的哦，这他这些个的，你什么他的这里，光追就当也当追就当，这里上半天就对你。你出个龙这个送给啷个？你把了这里，你看这里那地米啦，呀的这里，你看那瓦同学的，这没啷个拍的，你这个里，你看那瓦同学的，错了这个没吧？这都同学了吧？你把着他的，我这个刚面的这个唱过的，这同学了这里的啥？把这我们都没印象。
Then, at the stage of medium non-meditation, illusory fixations are completely purified, after which the continuity of day and night becomes a single state of non-meditation. In the subsequent realization, a subtle aspect of consciousness as self-cognizance remains. So before we said day and night, this is continuity, day and night of meditation. So it is said that when one recognizes the dream state at night, which is also then called to recognize the luminosity of sleep and also the luminosity of the deep sleep state, that when one recognizes even the sleep state, that is then when one has reached this continuity of day and night. And if one has not recognized the luminosity of mind in the sleep state, then one has not achieved such a continuity of meditation day and night. Then it still remains more of an aspiration toward that. But still, there's actually an instruction about that we can practice. So that is when you go to sleep, before you go to sleep, as you fall asleep, try to fall asleep in a state of mindfulness and wake up within a state of mindfulness. So the moment you wake up, don't think something like, oh, I slept or something like that, but wake up within a state of meditation instantly without allowing any other thoughts to interrupt that state. And if you practice that, then the sleep will also become much lighter, and then it's more easy to recognize the sleep state. So try to be very mindful the very moment you wake up. And that is similar to sustaining a continuity of day and night. And that will eventually lead into that. So eventually, as a result, you will recognize the luminosity of the deep sleep state. And so for now, this is a very difficult thing to accomplish. It's extremely difficult to recognize the deep sleep state. And even if we do, often it only lasts for a flash of an instant. But if we truly recognize it, as it is described here, this is what is called attaining enlightenment as a Dharmakaya. But in any case, for us, we should try to be mindful the moment you wake up. So you fall asleep mindful and you wake up in a meditative state. And if that's difficult, then think of a Yidam deity, for example. If you're able to remember your Yidam deity the very moment you wake up from sleeping, it is said then later after death, when you come into the bardo, you will become enlightened in the nature of that Yidam deity as a Sambhogakaya. When you recognize the deep sleep luminosity, it is said you will attain the Dharmakaya at the time of death. So there are basically three different levels of Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, three different paths of practice. So one is the Dharmakaya, which is to wake up within a meditative state, the nature of the mind, without any thought. And the second one is the Sambhogakaya, which is to remember the Yidam deity the moment you wake up, without a thought intervening. And the third one is the Nirmanakaya, which is to wake up within a state of love and compassion. And that leads to a birth as a Nirmanakaya. So these 3 levels of practice are extremely important. And you should practice them when you go to sleep. So again, Milarepa had said he also said that when the dreams or the nighttime perceptions and the daytime perceptions become one and the same, you have perfected meditation. So we have these perceptions of the daytime, the various feelings, and then we have the feelings that we have when we dream at night, and there seems to be a difference. But when you practice in this way, then they will become almost like the same. So what that means is that then during the daytime, the various feelings that arise will be not so strong anymore. You see them more like a dream, and you don't really cling to the reality of what is happening. So the feelings will be much less intense, and you more have an attitude of whatever happens, and anything that happens is fine. So this is what happens also when you have mastered one taste. So again, there's 2 important points, 2 experiences here. One is to sustain mindfulness when you fall asleep, and when you wake up within a state of meditation, or remember the Yidam deity, or remember love and compassion. And in this way, you have a path to attain enlightenment after death in the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, or the Nirmanakaya. So that's one. And then the second one is that in your day-to-day activities, just try to view all of the various appearances as not so solid, not so real, and just make them become more like dreamlike, so that they don't generate these powerful emotions or feelings. And then when you practice that, all these emotions of happiness and suffering become more and more equalized. So this is actually also related to the practice of one taste. But so anyways, here we were talking about the medium non-meditation.
The Namshi Chamo Yishis Nangerson, the Kichemori. Namshi the Yishi Chapate, me part Hakore, Namshi the Shi, Namshi elected Manji Tawatalo Yori, Nishi something, Yahakon, or Nathan Gobja, Nishi do Silver. Tidil Daji Nisame, Daji Nime, Hakoson. Yishidel, Shibakon, Da Mari, Ji Mari, Dali Machi, Jile Machi, Kangi Machi, Ramsong Yishi, so the Malarepak, Rochik the Bundle, Rochik Ramsong Yishi, Nangi Charlton, Ramsong Yishi, Da Yoma, Ji Yomari, Daji Jiame, Rajiga Hakomari, Raji Shiberici, Sama Hako, the nations of some Kongri, Daji Nidime, Shibatel Yishi Lepkore, the Yishi. That is, you got to need Semata, need to make Charles, need Semata, the she called Nakara, Chadi, Chukara, don't tell it. That they had done Karchotri, and Yamitan, they are Nega, Sani Pato Chukar Sanji, Pato Cosmo Sanji, Langa, Sunday, Hagasachi Yore. They have yet the turn dinner that Congress with Shirra, so much over the Shirk day, she, Chadi Yore. Shirk day, she channel Bellatella, touchable correspondent, Jamie with Stone, I took the Dapoja, Dapoja, young to taste of Motango, they let our Yori. Shirk also told my short Tatara Hakori. Yami not all religion, the Shirk also told my short. Shibati, Numongo saw the Horsoma, Numongi, she saw the justice, certain of data, or Numongi, she go on the judgment, Numongi, she got just something. Oh, you see the Numong of the judge, that long just a dollar, didn't call and town really. They had done to the soft out and they got take it somewhere. They have also not anything to really be somebody. She ran so much hard nas and they let by Yim goose. Kept the ja to top on lobby che, Minga, Bum deep sea was higher, just a test on job or somewhere. 3 days of longevity, you these days of somewhere. Don't you worry, you see the such a doctor, you see you caca your marry. Data don't in it, they did. There is a Tatani, Lamter Jelba, That's what's ready.
And so this one line here, that's very important. This subtle aspect of consciousness, in the next lines, Rinpoche read the great non-meditation. So in the end, even the subtle consciousness transforms into primordial wisdom. So that is an extremely important point. It's really important to understand the difference between this consciousness and primordial wisdom. So you surely should understand the difference between them. So the consciousness, as long as there is still consciousness, there still is, at least here, a subtle grasping of a self. There is a perception of a me. A consciousness perceives a me. Even in meditation, there is a subtle grasping of I am meditating, or I have understood, I have realized, and so on. There is this concept of a me that's still there in a subtle way. And it becomes primordial wisdom when there is no more thought of self and other, no more dualistic thought at all. There is no more thought of self or other at all. So that is also called the self-arisen primordial wisdom. And self-arisen also is a significant term. So Milarepa had said that in terms of the one, when one taste is attained, then the self-arisen primordial wisdom, awareness, arises naturally within. So the point of self-arisen means that it arises on its own naturally. Naturally, there is no thought of self or other. Naturally, you understand. So there is no thought, no need to think, I understood, I'm understanding. There's no need to conceptualize it. It happens on its own. So wisdom arises on its own from within this state. So when we go to sleep, coming back to the sleep, when we go to sleep, first we fall into this unconscious state. And then when you wake up from sleeping, and you wake up within awareness, you're waking up within the space expanse of primordial awareness, which is the Dharmakaya. And that really is the heart essence, the core of all practice. It's very important. Also for later in the bardo after death. So in the bardo, there are 3 ways to attain enlightenment in the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. But these are extremely important, precious instructions. And so in brief, coming back to that quote by the Vidyadhara Jigme Lingpa, he had said that, do not lose the stability of your own awareness. And that awareness really is primordial wisdom here. These words by Jigme Lingpa are very significant, and I always hold on to them and think about them again and again, because they are quite easy to understand too. So this awareness that doesn't lose its stability. So this is what we need to understand. And what that means is that when awareness doesn't lose stability, then even though thoughts or afflictions arise, they are transformed into primordial wisdom upon arising. So you should look at whether or not that is the case. You are doing that. So look at your experience. When an afflictive emotion arises, does it become primordial wisdom? Or is it often maybe the other way around, that wisdom becomes afflictive emotions? And in that case, we are following our karmic winds, which lead us to wander in samsara. So this is really the most important, crucial point, the essential point to understand. And it's really summarized by Jigme Lingpa's words, do not lose the stability of awareness. There's nothing else necessary. There's nothing higher that could be taught by, 100 scholars or 1,000 siddhas, or 100,000 or 10,000, pith instructions, and then what was the?
남조지 지름바 당 여러 라마자 대답 저 고만 남조지 남조지 지바 눈에 들이 탐시 대 탐시 망보송을 해서 대남조 따고 해서 자와tin 말을 배송도 정도니 야고요래 들이 주도하는지라 아니 강식이시요 들이 논처로는 되는 게 바는 여전은 저 바로서
So yeah, anyways, so and then also Rinpoche mentioned before. So basically, there's no higher instruction than that, and so to reach that state is the result, the final result, and so within that there's no separation between Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and so forth, and so that completes now the instructions on the 4 yogas of Mahamudra, and that was very brief, and there are many more elaborate instructions on that, like books and so on, that you can read. And also the most important words on that really are teachings on the 4 yogas by Milarepa, which are really excellent if you want to read them. So Dhamma friends, now I explained that to you as well as I could. And if I've made any mistakes, then I ask all the great scholars for forgiveness.
thank you. Come on.
Homage to precious Guru Garchen Rinpoche. With your blessing, so up to 7 a.m. Vietnam time today, it's 5 p.m. in Arizona time today, we have together accumulated 277,288 money mantras. So we have accumulated the retreat target of 100 million. We had more than 700 registered people attending empowerment on Zoom platform only, not counting the YouTube platform of GBI, and around 450 registered people participating during first 3 intensive days of retreat. Those people coming from 42 registered countries of 4 continents of Asia, Europe, America, and Australia. So we would like to dedicate all of these merits accumulated in this retreat for the world peace, pacification of COVID-19 pandemic, for long life of Garchen Rinpoche and all masters, and for enlightenment of all mother beings. And now I would like to welcome Dozin Tundrup Rinpoche to have a thank you speech to His Eminent Garchen Rinpoche.
Come on, thank you.
Rashi Bele Rinpoche Tangan Tara Shama Yegrena Tene Manatundra Pepe Yapon Drip Songs Tene Tapel and Yamyuk Yakam Mambo, Chitan Dordina Rinpoche Roma Mambo, Yamyuk Nan Yatruna Sope Yaporete Tene Tate Tamchi and Tene Rinpoche Garden Kona, the Tene Tara Manatong Tendrel to John. Tene Lapar the Rinpoche Shama year and Tene, Chenrezig Kawang Tantene, Kachu Sanji Machapa Tene, Chuchun Kolo Tene, Sanji Machapa Konawa, Tene Dota Tene Manatong Drip Chimbitene, Winzin Nawa, the Tam Chitene Rinpoche, Yang Tapanetene, Garden Che Shubu.
Tuji don't Rinpoche, I to talk so Roma Tamchela, Dawa Jana, Chuchu Kopena, don't Rinpoche Tachi de Roma Tamchela Tene. Kata tashi del bagi, donzin boche kata bagi, tashi dele.
So first, now we have completed 4 days of the 100 million Mani Mantra retreat, accumulation retreat, and we have completed it successfully. And Garchen Rinpoche has disciples around the world, so disciples from all over the world, from various countries, have joined the practice, so it really turned out really excellent. And it's really due to Rinpoche's kindness that we were able to complete the 100 million Mani mantras. So also I would like to thank Rinpoche for these 4 days, for conferring the Chenrezig empowerment, and also for giving us these incredible teachings, for turning the wheel of the Dharma for us. And I would like to thank him from the bottom of my heart for leading us in this 100 million Mani Mantra retreat. And then Garchen Rinpoche said, thank you to Dorje Rinpoche and all the disciples for doing the retreat, for organizing this Dharma event. Dashidele to all of you, and a kadak, Rinpoche offers a kadak to all of the disciples, and a kadak to Dorje Rinpoche as well.
Arigato, Dashidele, Kama, Japan, Vietnam, Delato, Yeni, Japan, Roma, Tamchela, Dashidele, Katab.
So Rinpoche says all the I offer this katak scarf to all the disciples around the world with many dashi delics.
Tene ta thadung den dona tene Rinpoche kitse shape yune yunde tene roa simchi thamchi don tene chujung kholo jum chebe tene kol soan de bius.
And I supplicate Rinpoche that he will live a very long life and then stay with us for a long time, and then continue to, in order to continue to benefit, turn the wheel of Dharma and benefit endlessly all sentient beings in samsara. So this is my supplication.
So now I would like to invite Brother Tung on behalf of the organizer Dripkum Garchen Punsok Choling and all the sponsors and participants to say thank you speech to His Eminent Garchen Rinpoche.
On behalf of organizers, those in Rinpoche, Dripkum Garchen Punsok Choling in Vietnam, and all participants, we would like to show our greatest appreciation and gratitude to His Eminent Garchen Rinpoche for the boundless compassion and love you have worked tirelessly for the benefit of all beings. We all disciples around the world in general, and the Vietnamese Saga in particular, are so fortunate to have you as our extraordinary, precious, and beloved Guru, to bestow many empowerments and teachings to us, and also part of liberation. Guru, teach us, protect us, bless us, and guide us. May you be healthy, remain firm, and steadfast for hundreds of aeons, and may all the aspirations be fulfilled. May we always be so hard, and may our minds never be separated. We love you so much.
Teni tuje je de mangwa teni chuso roba so chuso li teni ngage hin chuso la sam de che teni chuso la roba ja de se de ka che bo yi chuso de da bang lo ma re pen gri chuso tam je ngai jin de roba ja na teni ngala ngi ba ja chin na mo go chuso la no ji.
The Rinpoche says, thank you so much, and also in the future, I wish that that you continue to serve the various centers around the world, because the centers really are my heart. So I hope that you continue to help out in those centers. That's really most important, because those centers bring a lot of benefit to the people of your countries. So continue to help the centers. There's no need to give me a gift and so on, to give me anything. The best gift to give to me really is to help out the centers.
Thank you.
May I ask Christina on behalf of the organizer to make all sponsors and all participants around the world to make offerings to His Eminent Garchen Rinpoche.
Oh. Tukje tahile sanjo semjo Rinpoche maje bana
Brother Tung still have some very short thank you to make. Tung, please be quick.
Thank you, Christina. Now we would like to show our great appreciation and love to Dozin Dondrup Rinpoche for the precious teachings and guidance. Thank you for the patience, the support. We love you.
And then now, can I request the Dikra Tuten Dagiling to make an offerings on behalf of DGPC and all participants to Dozin Dondrup Rinpoche. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Come on.
And now, on behalf of the Drikum Garchen Rinpoche and all participants, may I ask Christina again we thank you the GBI Center, GBI Lamas, Christina, GBI technical team, GBI staff for your great support in arranging Garchen Rinpoche's schedule live stream on YouTube and joining this retreat. So many thanks, and also thank you very much, Ina, for translating precious words of Guru. Without you, the Dharma cannot. You are like the messengers of Guru. So we thank you very much. Thank you, Christina, for helping us doing that.
Thank you. Timbi Parajur Dorji Shapi Timbi Sa Tayong La Chap Timbi Jumdanga Thang Joba Ji Timba Yureng Nebe Trashi Jo Arigato, thank you, come on.
And now everybody, please turn on your video and audio to offer kata to Garchen Rinpoche and say thank you and Tashi Delek to Garchen Rinpoche.
Rinpoche, obrigada.
Thank you.
I'm just so happy to see your faces.
So much
Lai Rinpoche. Long Lai Rinpoche. Lai Rinpoche. Lai Rinpoche. Long Lai Rinpoche. Lai Rinpoche. Long Lai Rinpoche. Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No. Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No. Chiêu Rinpoche. Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No. Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No. Lama Phai No, Lama Phai No.
Con lon la
Thank you, Rinpoche. So please have a good rest and please live long and we see you in your coming
Rinpoche channel. Rinpoche channel.
Công ơn.
Rinpoche says that you should hang those the kataks that you're holding in your hands, put them around your neck, and think that it's Rinpoche putting it around your neck.